Thank you for joining us today on this captivating interview journey. Now let's dive deeper into the world of Web3 and explore the remarkable project, Subsocial. We have the Yung Beef, the content lead and the lead of community, with us today. And without further ado, let's kick off our conversation by delving into the origins of this groundbreaking endeavor. So before we delve into the intricacies of Subsocial, let's begin by getting to know our esteemed guests a little better. So Yung Beef, could you please introduce yourself and provide our viewers with an overview of your role within the project?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Yung Beef. I've been working with Subsocial for almost 2 years now. I first got into Web3 at the end of 2017, right when that bull market was going on. Played around with a little bit of the early Ethereum stuff that was going on, and then sort of lost interest again until a little over 2 years ago at the start of 2021, and I got back in. Found my way to Polkadot thanks to my brother, and thought, well, this seems like the best tech, and I'm taking sort of a 10-year time horizon, and so I'm really following the tech, not all of the hype necessarily. So started investigating Polkadot, started writing a couple articles to get some funding from the Kusama Treasury, just kind of seeing how that would work. Did manage to get some funding, and then basically segued that into my current role at Subsocial. So as you said, I'm the content lead and community manager. So I do all of our blog posts, marketing, do a lot of interviews. I spoke at Polkadot Decoded last year, manage our community, answer questions in the chats, etc. I also talk with other teams about possible integrations we can do, and a couple other smaller things that are kind of hard to define. But I was the 5th member on the team. We now have over a dozen people, so been here for a while. I'm getting close to 2 years.
Yeah, amazing. And let's move on to our first topic. That is that as we immerse ourselves in the realm of Web3, it's important to, it's impossible to ignore the praise and excitement surrounding Subsocials. Gavin Wood himself has described as one of the most vital and highly anticipated project in this space. So we are eager to hear your perspective on this assessment. So Yung Beef, what's your thoughts on Subsocial's significance and its potential impact on the future of decentralized technology?
Yeah, so I mean, I might be a little biased, obviously, because I'm working on it, but I would definitely agree with Gavin. I think it is very essential. I know there's some people that don't think on-chain communication is important, but to me, if someone says that, I don't think that they're really into Web3 for like the mission of Web3. I mean, if we're trying to essentially design a whole new internet and a whole new financial system, and maybe in the future use DAOs or on-chain governance to run countries, I mean, all of these things are, in my opinion, very revolutionary and kind of threaten the status quo of the people that are in power right now and the people that have all of the wealth and money right now. And so, if they decided all of a sudden that, oh, we need to shut all of this Web3 stuff down, I mean, if Twitter and Discord and Telegram went down, like the whole industry is just going to fall apart. Because all of our communication right now is on Web 2. We don't actually own the communication channels. We don't own our accounts. All that can be taken away. We can be censored. So I think getting networks set up on chain that can't be censored and can't be taken away, I think that's very important, and it needs to happen now instead of later when it might be too late, basically.
Yeah, and unrestricted communication and content sharing lie at the core of Subsocial's mission to promote global decentralization. So, Yung Beef, and we would love to hear more about how Subsocial is actively working towards achieving this object. Could you illustrate on the strategies and mechanism employed by Subsocial to foster this vision?
The base layer, we use a blockchain that's decentralized. So users have their own account that they have the private key to. No one else can control that. So if I go on Subsocial and I make a post, I own the post. There's no one that can delete it or anything. Compared to if I make a tweet on Twitter, they can go delete my tweet. And then we have spaces on Subsocial. All of the content lives inside spaces. So I can either post in a space that I own, or I can post in a space that you own. So Subsocial is totally censorship resistant, but we do still have moderation because that's really important. One, for curation, being able to, have specific interests on a page, for example, and also just for spam or illegal content. So if I posted in a space that you own, you could go hide my post. You can't actually delete it, but you can make it where it's not visible on chain. So that's sort of moderation in a sense. But I can post in my own space and nobody can do anything to it. So I totally own it. Now, when I make a post, the actual content is hosted on IPFS to save space. We don't put all of the content on the blockchain. And then we put the content identifier from the IPFS content. We put that on chain, so it's much more compact. If someone wants to upload a big video, we're not uploading 2 gigabytes of video to the blockchain. So the people running the IPFS nodes can technically decide not to host something. For example, if it was something illegal, they don't want the police to come to their house. But otherwise, it's not really a problem. And we're partnering with Crest Network, which is basically a payment layer on top of IPFS to handle all of that. And then the top layer is the application layer. For example, PolkaWorld or GrowChat or FriendTube, all applications built on Subsocial. So these are obviously centralized. They're built by a small development team. They have control over the application, etc. In the long run, that's not really a problem because we'll have so many different applications. If one application is behaving badly, people will just leave and go to another application, which is really one of the big selling points of Subsocial. If Twitter starts deleting some of my tweets and I'm unhappy about that, I can't take all of my previous tweets and all of my followers and go to Facebook. It's all locked in on Twitter. But with Subsocial, the whole content base, the user base, your connections, all of your posts, your history, that all lives on Subsocial. It's totally open, decentralized. And then you just use different applications depending on what user interface or user experience you're looking for. So if one application starts not showing your tweets anymore for some reason, you can just go use a different one and you already have all of your connections, your content, because that's coming from the base layer of Subsocial. So the end applications, they can't do moderation. Obviously, if someone's posting illegal content, or the classic example is you could have a social network that's just focused on dogs. So it wouldn't show anything about cats. Now, on Subsocial, there would still be content about cats, and you could have a different website that's just about cats, and it's not going to show dogs. But if I make a post about cats, it's not getting censored. It's just not being shown on the dog website because they're just trying to curate a specific experience there. So at the end of the day, if you want to be completely 100% totally censorship resistant, you will need to post content in your own space, run your own IPFS node, and run your own front-end application. But that's basically like if you look at the dark web right now in Web 2, you already have to do that if you're trying to, do something really crazy. For 99.999% of people, it doesn't really matter. So you just post on your space in Subsocial, and that's basically good enough. There's not any central power that's going to specifically target you for your political views, for example.
Normal user could very easy to do that.
To set up all 3 of those things, no, you would definitely need some technical skills. But like I said, for basically everyone, the only step that you need to do is posting in your own space, which is super easy to set up using our web app.
The recent launch of Post Forever, I think that's an application that allows users to effortlessly preserve tweets on Subsocial blockchain, has undoubtedly catch the attention of many. So we would be delighted to hear about the initial feedbacks you have received regarding this innovative application. And furthermore, what's your expectations to its future development and potential impact?
Yeah, so Post Forever is a great example use case of what you can do on Subsocial.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty simple, but it definitely serves a good purpose. It basically lets you take the URL of a tweet, you paste it into a form, and then you can either save it to a space that you own if you want to make sure that it's totally preserved, or we have a space set up for just like public Twitter backups. So um, that's a space that anyone can post in, so anyone can back up a tweet to that space. Obviously, someone owns that particular space, and then if you back up a tweet to that public space, that person could go and hide it. So if you want to make sure that essentially you own the backup of that tweet, you can back it up to your space specifically. But I actually used this a couple days ago, so it's pretty simple and easy to use. Now people can edit tweets or they can go and delete them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if you back up a tweet as soon as it's tweeted, even if they go and delete the tweet, we've already saved it on chain, so you can go and see it there. And yeah, we got some pretty good feedback on that when we launched it. A lot of people had asked about the ability to do that. As far as future development, right now we aren't prioritizing it as much. We sort of built it as just a, look what you can do with Subsocial. We have a couple of different applications that we've built, so we're not able to focus development on all of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So where does all this stuff preserved? On chain. I mean, they're on IPFS, right? Or
Hmm. Yeah, so we're working with Crest Network, as I mentioned. Um, IPFS is sort of just a decentralized system for saving content,
Mhm.
but people around the world are running servers, and if you want to store something on their server, why should they let you? So there's a couple different blockchain networks that basically function as payment layers on top of IPFS.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm not gonna go on some website and like put in my credit card info to store some file on some guy's computer in Africa or whatever. Um, so it's decentralized. So using crypto for that makes total sense. And putting it on a blockchain is really good. So Crest Network is a good example of that in the Polkadot ecosystem. And they have a couple products where you can basically pay a one-time fee to guarantee that something will be stored for up to 200 years with at least 4 copies of it. So if one of the servers breaks one day, then you still have 3 copies, and then it will make a 4th copy automatically. Um, so yeah, you can store it for up to 200 years with just a one-time fee up front. The fee is like really small. So that basically guarantees that the content is stored for that whole time. And then the way that IPFS works, the content is basically hashed to create a unique identifier. So even if you copy the content, it's still going to have the same identifier.
Mhm.
And that identifier is what we actually put on chain. So you
Mhm.
can take that and then search the ID on IPFS, and you'll always find the content.
In our space, doing the same thing like Subsocial.
Yeah, there's a number of them. I put out a post on our blog, I think last March. It's titled "Why Subsocial is the Best," but it's mainly due to us building on Polkadot. So, like the original Web3 social project was called Steem It, and that was forked to make Hive, which made some improvements. And then now we have things like Lens building on Polygon. But basically, Steemit and Hive, for example, they're standalone blockchains. So the chain is built and designed specifically for social use cases, which has a lot of advantages compared to Lens being built on top of a general purpose chain. So it can't do cool things because it can't customize the blockchain, and it has to compete with block space, compete for block space with everything else running on Polygon, which also isn't great. But the standalone chains like Steemit and Hive, so they have the advantage of custom blockchain, but they're basically cut off from everything else. So if you want to interact with Ethereum, for example, you have to use a bridge. And we all know bridges aren't great. They're slow, they're expensive, they get hacked, etc. Versus Lens, it's on Polygon, so it's like automatically you can access everything else on Polygon, DeFi, that sort of thing. But it doesn't have its own custom blockchain. So by building in Polkadot, we get the best of both worlds. So we have a custom blockchain specifically built for social use cases. Takes advantage of Substrate, which is really powerful. So there's all sorts of cool stuff we can do. But at the same time, because of XCM and the Polkadot Relay chain, we're still part of an ecosystem. We don't have to use bridges. We can interact with all of these different chains doing different use cases. So it's basically the best of both worlds without the drawbacks of either.
Mm. Based on the technique of Substrate and Polkadot and Subsocial, if you are a developer or you are a dApp designer, what dApps would you like to, what kind of dApps would you like to build on your platform?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of ideas. Obviously, the low-hanging fruit is just sort of a copy of what we already have on Web2. So we've seen someone recently launch FriendTube, which is basically like YouTube built on top of Subsocial.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually upload this interview there if you want to have it on Subsocial. So, someone could build sort of a copy of Twitter, a copy of Facebook, Instagram, etc. But in my opinion, trying to compete with these existing Web2 networks on their home turf, they already have the network effects. It just seems like it's not really a great strategy to try to do that. In my opinion, the winning move is to look at what can you build in Web3 that Twitter and Facebook cannot possibly do because they're Web2 native. So, features like NFTs, subscriptions, monetization, all of this sort of stuff. Really take a look at these different Web3 native features and come up with some really creative use cases of things you can do.
As we embrace decentralization, ensuring fairness and openness becomes crucial. Becomes crucial. So, could you shed light on how Subsocial navigate this delicate balance? What measures are in place to safeguard against manipulation and fraudulent activities while upholding the principles of openness and transparency?
That's a good question. So obviously no one can stop you from posting on the blockchain because it is open. A lot of this will come down to the applications that the end user are using. The vast majority of the moderation is going to be happening on the application side, I think. Some of it might be in spaces, like if I have a community space and someone posts a scam, I can just go hide it. But I imagine it will mostly be the end user applications using AI and algorithms to detect what's spam and blocking it. And, as usual, you'll probably end up with some stuff that's not a problem that does end up getting blocked. But again, it's not getting censored off the chain. So, it might be that you have 10 different applications. 5 of them have an algorithm that thinks this post is a scam, and so they hide it. The other 5 don't. So, it'll kind of depend on which application you're using and how their system is set up.
Okay. Let's move to the next one. Collaboration is key to the success of any project, especially within the Web3 industry. So we are eager to hear about some of the significant partnerships that Subsocial has formed and how they have contributed to the project growth and development.
Yeah, probably our 2 biggest partners right now are Crest and Subsquid. So I talked about Crest earlier. We're using them for all of our storage. They've been really great. Especially, I think storage in Web3 is important anyways, but especially for a social network, it's super important with how much content gets produced all the time. And Subsquid is basically the best blockchain indexer in the world. So if you're not familiar with what an indexer is, it's, imagine if you have a big book and you want to find a specific word, or you want to see how many times that word appeared in the book. You can either read the entire book and count them, which might take a while, or you can just sort of go look at the glossary in the back of a book is probably a good analogy. So with Subsquid, if I want to see how many likes does a post have, instead of having to go through every single block in the blockchain and count up every time the post was liked, Subsquid basically already did that, and then it just keeps a database of how many likes does this post have. And so an application can just talk to Subsquid and figure that out super fast instead of having to go and read through the entire blockchain every time it wants to know something. We are talking with Kilt. Don't have anything set in stone there, but in terms of digital identities, and we've partnered with the Remark team for our Spacers NFT collection, which we'll be releasing pretty soon.
Okay. Could you provide with us an overview of the exciting initiatives and upcoming milestones that we can expect from Subsocial in the months or years ahead?
Our most exciting news right now is a couple of weeks ago. We put out our off-chain signer, which is basically the culmination of our efforts to fix all of the onboarding barriers, tokens, and then you have to constantly sign transactions in your wallet. Everything like that. I don't think most people are going to be able to properly manage a wallet with the seed phrase and all of that. So with this technology, we basically made it possible where you can use a email and password if you want to sign into PolkaWorld, which is one of our applications on Subsocial. And then you can like and comment. You don't need any tokens. You don't have to constantly confirm the transactions. It's basically just like using Facebook or Twitter. So my common line is that it's simple enough now that my grandma can use it, which isn't really my goal to get my grandma on Web3, but if it's simple enough that my grandma can do it, anyone can do it, which is basically where we want to be. So at this point, I think we're ready to onboard 1 billion users. So now it's a matter of building really attractive Web3 native use cases, sort of like I mentioned earlier. But as far as what we're doing in the future, we've got some improvements for our Subsocial usernames coming out, and we're doing a lot of work on Grill Chat, if you're familiar with that. Grill Chat's basically an application that lets you chat anonymously on chain. So again, you don't need a wallet or any tokens. You just open Grill Chat, send a message. It automatically creates an account for you. So it's basically anonymous. I change accounts probably 3 or 4 times a day just to make sure that it's still totally anonymous. You know, if you use one name and you say stuff a bunch, people might be able to figure out who you are. So, but it's super easy to change accounts. You can just get a new one, no problem. We're working on users with EVM wallets, such as MetaMask, being able to connect to that, even though it's running on Substrate. So this again uses our off-chain signer. So we're kind of thinking of it as like a Trojan horse into the Ethereum ecosystem. We'll be like, hey, here's this application you can use. If you connect your MetaMask, you can use NFTs, interact with smart contracts, etc. But on the back end, it's all running on Substrate. So we basically generate a Substrate account for them, just like on Grill Chat normally, but then they can link their EVM wallet to that. So we think that we can do that to get them into the Subsocial ecosystem where they will be able to use the EVM wallet. And then we think we can sort of use that as a way to onboard users from Ethereum into Polkadot.
And as we conduct our interview, is there something you would like to add or remark?
Just definitely go give Subsocial a try. You can try Grill Chat. The URL is grill.chat. So you can go on there, you can start talking about stuff in the Polkadot ecosystem or different crypto events. You can onboard super easily. You don't even have to make an account. You just send your first message and it automatically makes an account for you. And also try PolkaWorld. It's basically our application that we built on top of Subsocial. My hope is that in the long run, we will just stop developing PolkaWorld because there will be 100 different applications that are much better. But for now, PolkaWorld is basically the main one. So we already have implemented our off-chain signer tech. So you can start with an email and password if you want. Or if you do use a wallet, you can still set it up where you don't have to constantly confirm transactions. So it's a really smooth user experience. You can start posting content on chain. You can make a blog, just kind of talk with other people. Or you can check out FriendTube, which recently launched. It's friendtube.xyz, which is basically like YouTube on Subsocial. So you can upload videos, you can go watch videos, really cool stuff.
Okay, and thank you so much for your time. And may everything about you and Subsocial great in the future.
Yep. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you so much.